To really get a handle on what's happening in Nepal today, we're not just going to look at a timeline of events. No, we're going to go deeper. We're going to explore the competing ideas, the powerful narratives that are right now, at this very moment, shaping its future.
And that's really the heart of the matter. You see, Nepal today is a battleground of ideas. We're talking about its national identity, its whole economic path, even its social fabric. All of it is being defined by these powerful, often conflicting stories. And make no mistake, the outcome of this struggle, it's going to set the country's direction for decades to come. All right, let's start with the political battlefield. It's really defined by three key tensions. You've got the unresolved legacy of its past, the constant instability of its present, and this ongoing debate about the inclusion of its people. So, first up, the long shadow of the Civil War. I mean, it ended almost 20 years ago, but the country is still wrestling with how to deliver justice for the victims and, finally complete that peace process. This isn't just something for the history books. It's a live, incredibly divisive issue right now. And right here, you see this fundamental clash. On one side, you have the dominant government view, and this often includes former enemies from the war, now working together in a coalition. Their push is for reconciliation, using truth commissions and reparations to just move forward. But then you have the other side. Victims groups and civil society, they're saying, hold on, this just looks like amnesty. Their argument is that without real accountability, and that means prosecuting serious crimes, any peace you build is just going to be built on a really fragile foundation. Now, this unresolved past feeds directly into the second major political problem, a real crisis of governance. Look, chronic political instability isn't just a headline you see every now and then. It's a defining feature of Nepal's system, and it's leading to massive public frustration. So how does the political establishment explain it? Well, they frame this constant shuffling of coalitions as, a necessary evil, a way to build consensus. But a growing movement, especially among young people, they're just not buying it. Their counter-narrative calls it what they see it as, a culture of corruption and backroom deals among an old guard. And what's interesting is they're not just asking for a new coalition. They're demanding an entirely new system of politics. Okay, the third political battleground we're looking at revolves around gender. And this one's interesting because, on paper, Nepal's constitution is incredibly progressive. But the reality, the actual inclusion of women in positions of power, well, that's a whole other story. And this number, 33%, is really at the heart of the official story. The Constitution requires that at least a third of parliamentary seats go to women, and this figure, it's often held up as definitive proof of major progress. But the counter-narrative from feminist groups sees it very differently. They frame it as quantitative progress versus qualitative exclusion. Basically, they're saying, sure, the numbers are being met, but what does it mean if women are just placed in token positions? They argue that women are still shut out from where the real decisions are made. So the debate has shifted. It's not just about getting a seat at the table anymore, it's about having a real, powerful voice. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the economy, because Nepal is really at a critical crossroads here. The whole debate is about its fundamental economic model. Are they going to continue down a path of dependency or push for self-sustainability? And all of this is happening while they're trying to navigate some really intense geopolitical pressures. At the core of this economic debate is what you could call the dependency dilemma. For decades now, the economy has basically been propped out by two huge external forces, foreign aid on one hand and money sent home by migrant workers on the other. The big question everyone's asking is this a viable strategy for the future, or is it a long-term trap? So the dominant view inside the government is pretty clear. They see foreign aid and investment as absolutely essential for development. But there's a growing chorus of critics sounding the alarm. They're warning that this over-reliance is creating a classic dependency trap. It stifles the creation of jobs at home and leads to this massive brain drain, with so many young, talented people leaving the country to find work. And just look at this chart to see the sheer scale of the issue. Remittances, that's the money sent home from abroad, make up almost a quarter of Nepal's entire GDP. That one statistic right there makes the whole dependency trap argument incredibly real. It highlights a huge vulnerability at the very heart of the national economy. As if that weren't complicated enough, this whole economic picture gets another layer of complexity from Nepal's geography. I mean, it's literally wedged between two global giants. So its economic decisions are completely tangled up in a high-stakes geo-economic rivalry, mostly between China and the United States. And this really breaks down into two major camps. On one side, you've got China's Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. It promises huge infrastructure projects, but it also comes with these nagging concerns about a potential debt trap. On the other side, there's the U.S. Millennium Challenge Corporation, the MCC. It offers big development grants, but opponents see it as just a tool for America's Indo-Pacific strategy to contain China. So Nepal is stuck in the middle, trying to pull off this incredibly difficult balancing act to get the economic benefits without getting caught in the geopolitical crossfire. And that brings us to our final section, which gets into the deepest and, maybe the most emotional set of narratives, the battle over national identity itself. We're talking about fundamental questions about religion, about social structure, about what it even means to be Nepali. And these are being fiercely debated right now. A major flashpoint here is a country's religious identity. You see, the 2015 Constitution declared Nepal a secular state. That officially ended its long, long history as the world's only Hindu kingdom. But believe me, that decision is far from settled.
Okay, so the dominant view, the one held by supporters of the Constitution, is that a secular republic is the only way to guarantee equality in a country with so many different faiths. But there's a really powerful counter-narrative being pushed by nationalist groups. They're calling for the restoration of a Hindu state. For them, secularism is some kind of foreign, imported idea, and they argue that Hinduism is absolutely essential to protecting Nepal's core cultural identity.
And finally, we have to talk about the persistent, enduring issue of caste. Even though it's officially outlawed, this deeply rooted system of discrimination continues to be the social reality for millions of people, especially for Dalits.
The official story from the state is one of progress. They'll point to legal bans and support programs as proof that they're committed to ending discrimination. And yet, the lived reality reported by Dalit activists and others tells a completely different story. They argue the laws just aren't working, that discrimination is still a pervasive everyday reality, deeply embedded in society and even in state structures. For them, this fight isn't for justice on paper. It's for real, tangible justice.
So, when we pull all these different threads together, a pretty clear picture starts to emerge, doesn't it? Nepal's future isn't set in stone. It's being forged, right now, in the fire of these competing narratives. These are the core tensions that are really defining the nation today. In politics, you have that constant pull between reconciliation and justice, between consensus and real reform. In economics, it's dependency versus sustainability. And at the level of national identity, it's the clash between a secular vision and a Hindu state, and between legal equality on paper and a stubborn, deeply ingrained social reality.
And as our own analysis here at Alpha Business Media concludes, the country's success really hinges on this exact process. The ability to somehow navigate and reconcile these deeply held, competing visions, well, that's the single greatest challenge and maybe the greatest opportunity facing Nepal today.
Which, of course, leaves us with the big question. In this profound struggle of ideas, which story is ultimately going to win out? Will it be a story of reconciliation or accountability, of dependency or self-reliance, of secular pluralism or religious nationalism? The final chapter hasn't been written yet, and the answer will define the very future of Nepal.